Hello, Toy Collector fans. Universal Toy Collector here, and welcome to the channel. Let's have a discussion. Yes, hello everybody. I am hoping you are all well and having a great weekend so far. So the Discuss live stream is where I get a guest on and we have a discussion about a certain topic. It could be, well, it probably to do with like toy collecting or something to do loosely with toy collecting or the community itself. Before I get my guest on, let's just say hello to people in the chat. We've got Adam Berry, evening, and hello to genuine awesome guys in Stu and Jim. Thank you very much. Hope you are both well. And got a cuppa in hand to watch a stream. Awesome stuff. And there's that bloody word again. Awesome. Stop it, Stu. Right. We've got Des T. Hello, sir. How are you? Thank you for joining us. Very much appreciated. We have Kieran Ball. Hello there. Thank you. Thank you very much. We have Martin. Hi, Stu and Jim. Hi, Adam, Des, and Kieran. Nice of you to join us. Thank you very much. People saying hello. We've got Keith Knight. Hello, Adam, Des, Kieran, Martin. Good evening. Yes. How are you, sir? Nice of you to join us. Thank you very much. We've got Travels and More with Jason. Hello. Nice of you to join us. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Hope you're well, my friend. Who else we got? We've got Boba Hicks. Hello there. Nice of you to join us. Very much appreciated. Thank you. Hello, Kieran. Kieran, I've got to say, that gift box you sent me the other day was absolutely fantastic. I'm currently still deciding as and how to display things. So yeah, you will be the first one to see the pictures. I'll send it to you before I put the video up. But yeah, brilliant stuff. You're too kind, mate. Too kind. We have Georgie. Hello, my love. How are you? Says, let's not forget to give a good thumbs up. Thank you very much, Des. Very much appreciated. Thank you, sir. Who else have we got? Everybody saying hello to each other. Anybody new in the chat? Podcasting Pod Racing Palpatine, beg your pardon. Hello, sir. How are you? Thank you for joining us. Excuse me. We've got Gojitron. Hello there. Nice of you to join us. Thank you very much, my friend. Hoping you are well. Let's have a look again. Everybody saying hello. TVC. Hello, sir. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're keeping well, my friend. Again, people saying hello. Right. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is get my guest on. It is the one, the only person who is responsible for me having this beard. It is Grindhead Jim. Hello, how are you, sir?
I'm great. Mine's bigger.
Well, look, there's no need to boast, all right? There's no need to boast. Yeah. To be fair, I have had a trim. I went in last weekend and said, can I just have a little bit of a trim? And they said, okay. And they took quite a bit off. So it'll grow back. It'll grow back.
So you said it's a trim? I've heard of these. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah. I mean, it was going quite well. It was going quite well. It wasn't quite to your standard, but it was getting there. Right. Let's just hello to TJC. Hello, sir. Nice of you to join us. Thank you.
Well, I think the trim looks great. It looks smart. And we did say you could trim it as long as you had the beard. So you're not breaking any bylaws. I think you're fine.
Well, I think I'll have another trim towards the end of August because I do have a wedding to go to. So I don't want to look too... But then after that, I think from August all the way through to December, I'm just going to let it grow wild. Anyhow, we're not here to compare beards, Jim. Good God, no. We're here to have a discussion. So the discussion is, and the topic point is, and guys in the chat, please feel free to leave comments and your thoughts as well, because it'd be interesting to hear what you've got to say. Jim, the question is, my friend, how much of an influence do you think we have as toy collecting YouTubers within the community have on the younger generation, if any influence at all?
As YouTubers, I would say that very little. I've been looking at my statistics. I've had this channel, my channel anyway, for 11 years. It'll be this October. So, and I would say that with my demographic, even when I was reporting on video gaming as an example, I still am firmly in that 30 to 50 range of age group. I feel like live streamers within the YouTube space or Twitch space probably have a little bit more influence Anyone who does YouTube Shorts, and TikTok, and Instagram, there might be a bit more crossover. So I'd say that if we're talking about the type of collectors you and I are, at the age that we are, and the reverence of the properties we have, unfortunately, I would say not as much influence as we would probably love to have.
Why do you think then that is the case? I mean, because surely, like, collectors of all generations, I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe we're a dying breed, Jim, I don't know, but you would have thought that they would have been interested in certain toy lines, and, you know, like, especially the vintage side of things with, like, Star Wars and Motu and Transformers and the likes.
Well, the reason that I think that a lot of that's gone away with the generations that are aging into the budget that they can actually afford it. It's a few things of note, and it's not just our fault for not influencing them. The economy is vastly different than it was when we were their age. For one thing, it's harder to find work that pays really well, you know, right out of college or right out of school. I think that there's less discretionary income in general, and I've noticed that this generation, again, that are just coming of age to where they might want to start collecting or what have you, there's so little physical stuff in their life. They don't have any memories of going to a video store to rent a video. They don't have any or a video game for that matter. They probably don't have any recollection of something like that. And streaming being such a prevalent thing, even gaming, like I said, I hate to harp on that, but that's a fully digital realm almost at this point. And their attention spans being so fickle, you know, they tend to like to travel more. You know, the idea of traveling and living and spreading your cultural experience seems to be a much higher priority than filling a home base with a bunch of stuff. That's my cultural take on it. I think that's a big part of it.
I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people like during my collecting life, and a lot of them say that, you know, at a certain age they stopped playing with toys and stuff like that. They went off and did other things that you've basically mentioned, gone off traveling or gone to work or done other things, and then they've got back into it. Is there any do you think there's a chance that the younger generation will do something like that and go back to their childhood toys and start collecting them again and or do you think that is well and truly gone now?
I don't think that that's well and truly gone. We're not going to know until it happens, for one thing. But I think the way people collect and what people collect is going to change just as much as the way they take in media, things like that. So, an example, there will never be a Jaws moment again. Jaws was the first ever summer blockbuster film. Star Wars then blew that out of the water. There will never be another first Star Wars movie in terms of cultural impact because of the way it changed cinema and things like that. The closest thing to that we have is the first 10 years of the MCU with culminating in Infinity War and Endgame. I don't think we'll see the likes of that again, at least not for a while. So I think, you know, eventually they're going to come back, and maybe so this is going to be kind of maybe a little bit ironic for some collectors out there that are like, Marvel Legends, I only want the comic accurate stuff. I don't care about the MCU. If kids that grew up on that stuff are going to collect anything, it's probably going to be MCU related figures. Mark my words. Like that sort of thing. I think that's a big possibility, but it also is greatly dependent upon what types of collectibles are in the marketplace as they approach, you know, their mid-30s, going into their 40s and beyond. So it really is going to come down to a combination of where are things culturally, where's the economy going to be at that point, and are companies encouraging this sort of thing. Granted, there are many, 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 many people in this hobby of collecting toys and other things that a few of them in this chat, even I know for a fact, they got into collecting when there wasn't really a huge online presence for the hobby. It was just, this is something I do. And when you found out someone else did it was like, oh, you do that? That's great. So I think that at least gives a better chance of the hobby spreading, because once someone gets into it and they stay, I was talking to Lauren, my wife, about this last night in prep for this. I was like, well, let me talk this out, get my thoughts up and going. For example, maybe someone wants MCU stuff,
Yep.
but perhaps action figures aren't really the vibe they're going for.
Mm.
And she's like, what do you mean? I said, well, there's a lot of really, 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 really nice figures and statuettes out there. And maybe they're going to only collect a particular character, much like many people do now.
Yeah.
And she says, well, what do you mean they're so expensive? I says, when I pointed to one of my shelves and I said, well, that shelf is probably, I don't know, $500 to $700 US. Would it be any different if I bought one $500 to $700 thing and put it on the shelf? If we're talking financial value of something, I think there may be because of the way culturally things tend to be going with minimalism, things like that. Maybe you only get a few things, but are really big ticket, really expensive, super nice things. I don't know. I think that might be a direction things going. The idea of collecting what we collect and the way we collect it, I think we have to begin to realize, understand, and respect the fact that this whole thing, this whole idea of this, the way we do it, what we collect, what we have a reverence for, this is our thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be somebody else's thing. It doesn't need to be passed on to the next generation. There will be some out there. There always will be. Okay, because a lot of kids are heavily influenced by their parents.
Yeah.
They grew up with that. Like Pixel Dan is a good example. He's raising his boys to love toys and play with toys and collect toys, and they're really firmly into it. Whether or not they come around to do it at the level that he's done it, that remains to be seen when they're a bit older. But I do think that part of this discussion, we probably need to focus on the fact that, do we need, is there a need for us to pass this on? Or should we not just be content with the fact that this is something we love, we're doing it, we have camaraderies and friendships we built around this. This is our life. We should just live it and not be so concerned about what happens afterwards.
We'll get back to that in a second. Just get that back in a second. I just want a random question for Jim. Where are you from in the States? My boss is from Colorado, and you sound very familiar. That's from Adam Bailey.
I'm from all over. I was born in the Northeast of the country in Massachusetts, but my family hails from the Pittsburgh area of Pennsylvania, also in the Northeast. But I have lived all over the country, worked with a lot of different people. I lived in Chicago for almost a decade, having been in the Marines for about half a decade. You pick up accents and stuff. So like sometimes I sound like I'm from Pittsburgh. Sometimes I sound like I'm from Chicago. It's all over the place. To quote Danny Glover in Lethal Weapon 2, shitty accent. So no Colorado blood in me, sir.
Awesome. Good stuff. Good stuff. Back to the conversation. Doesn't it not worry you then, with all the collection that you've got, what's going to happen to it, once we go? I mean, our IPs like Star Wars, G.I. Joe, for example, Transformers, Masters of the Universe, are they going to be around in the next 40 odd years?
If I'm dead and gone, what do I care? I'm dead. Well, that's my philosophy on it. Right now, would I hope that that kind of thing would stay alive? Sure. But although there are like toy lines now that a lot of people are just like, I'm not into that. Like maybe like McFarlane multiverse for DC stuff. That might be someone else's superpowers collection years down the road, because that was what was prevalent when they were growing up, right? Or the McFarlane resurgence of the superpowers might influence someone to pick those up because they had them as a kid or whatever. It's entirely possible. But as far as like, do I care? Like culturally, yes. Me personally, I couldn't give less of a crap, just because look, my wife knows what to do with my stuff. If I go first, she knows what's going to happen. And then I told her, I was like, it doesn't matter what happens to it. It doesn't. Beyond what we've discussed. I don't know anyone in my family that would want it beyond her. And I don't want it to go to some random stranger just willy-nilly either. Have an estate sale, and then maybe, if something tragic happens, heaven forbid, auction, give some of it to some close friends, auction the rest off, and then give it to a charity. Who cares? I think it's a little bit, and I hate using this word, but I'm gonna, it's a little bit pretentious, I think, to say like, well, what's going to happen to my toys when I die? Like, what do you care? And if the next generation's not into it, like, okay, there's a billion other ways that we can preserve the reverence and nostalgia without people having to have those same pieces of plastic in their hands. There will, if we know there's always going to be somebody who might pick it up, but just by virtue of someone might find it in year 2070, they might find a Bespin Luke. Like, what is this? Wait a minute, is this from that really old movie? And part is this? Did they have toys of this? And they look it up, and in YouTube or whatever YouTube will become in 50 years, they'll be able to look back on all these live streams and videos. Like, the information's never going away. Once on the internet, always on the internet, right? So I think that just as I am adamant that kids are growing up in a different way with different cultural influences and all this, they also, as part of that influence, have all of our opinions and ideas and historical reference, video essays, the lot. So I feel like we're also giving them a much better chance of discovering this on their own.
Right.
So who knows what the future holds? I think it's completely to be determined. Yeah,
fair point. Fair point. Des T's made a comment there. To be fair, you guys are not going for the youth market. Well, no, we're not. But I mean, I say on my videos, you know, it's for the adult toy collectors, the channel, basically because of the humor and the banter and some of, you know, opinions and stuff. And we know that, you know, some people don't like certain opinions and whatnot, especially these days. But I think if I went back to my youth, I'd say 17, 18, I was very much into Star Trek. I still love Star Wars. What was it? 94. You had the Power of the Force figures come back out again. So that kind of got me back into collecting. Do you know what? I would have loved it if we had a thing called YouTube and I could see everybody's collection, because I've been really heavily influenced by you guys, the toy collecting community that is out there at the moment. So I think if I'd have had that as a kid back then when I was 18, 19, I don't think I would have got rid of all my collection to start with. And I think I would have probably got more and I would have become more knowledgeable about it. And so, yeah, you guys would have been a massive influence on me. What's to say that there isn't other people out there or other kids out there, maybe, for example, that want to be influenced like I might have wanted to be at that age?
I'm sure that they're out there, but again, I think you answered your own question in a sense, is that if they really want that information, you know, if there's some spark in their head, they're gonna be able to find it. It's not like we don't have the disadvantages that we had. They do have it better in many ways.
Yeah.
There's even more properties to collect now too than there ever was.
I mean, I don't know what I was going to say. It's just the top of my noggin is gone. Let me just. I don't think we have much influence at all when it comes to big corporates. After all, they make decisions based on bottom line, and on bottom line is collectors make decisions with our heart 90% of the time. We do. I mean, look, you've got these big toy companies and stuff, and they are playing on the nostalgia of our age group,
right?
Very much so. So they say, but then they turn around and say, "But we're making toys for kids." They're not really, are they? They're not really.
Now, the exception to that, I would say, is that Mattel has done a really big push these last 3 or 4 years, trying to diversify that brand. They have like the kid-focused 3D computer animated He-Man that got a lot of kids interested. I scoffed at it. I thought it wasn't going to work. It's apparently working. And so you see more of that. Certainly the Star Wars sequel trilogy, no matter how you feel about it, it is a generation's first experience with Star Wars. So I think that the cycle could come around again, just in a different light, because again, we talk about influencing the younger generation essentially to do what we're doing the way we're doing it. That's what this discussion really is about, if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Now, if at 15 to 20, you know, if my dad was like, hey, you should collect, he didn't collect these, but like wooden trucks from the 50s, because that's what I played with, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that I would have been receptive to that. Dad had a massive vinyl collection. By that point, I was collecting CDs, and he never said you should get vinyl. He said, well, as long as you have a reverence for music, I'm down. He always had a little glint in his eye when he would see how excited I got about music, because it was something that was big for him as well. So I think that there's gonna be people out there. I think it's just gonna manifest in a way that we're not anticipating. Something's gonna change along the way, and I don't think it's NFTs. That's for sure.
Goji's made a point. As a parent of Gen X, I don't think there's anything that impacted that generation in the toy realm as it did with Gen X. There may have nostalgia for some things, but I doubt it will be toys. Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, we were very lucky back in the day, back in the 80s, weren't we? I mean, we had, you know, those big toy lines and stuff like that, you know. But why I know the world's changed and stuff like that, but why so much? It's changed so much like that. I mean, if I was a kid now, I would look back and see channels like these and say, wow, look at all those cool toys they had as a kid. And I mean, the stuff they do for the Star Wars for the kids these days isn't great. Some of the toys that they do for kids these days isn't great. I mean, we had, you know, the Star Wars figures 3 3/4 inch. Yes, they were 5p away. You had the Motu figures. You had the O-ring G.I. Joe figures. You had Transformers that were decent. Do you know what I mean? We had some good toys back in those days. Why has that changed? I mean, and do you think that's got a lot to do with it?
I think that I think people sit in these big boardrooms and look at the way that media is changing, and they're because again they're trying to make money. Right? Yeah, they weren't for a while there. They weren't seeing toys sell the way that they used to. Well, I would argue that a big part of that is they weren't making good toys. So it's like you can't blame the generation and everything else, but a lack of things in the marketplace, you know, like you're not going to have someone who necessarily is going to have reverence for these little weird Star Wars figures that they have for like little kids and stuff. I don't think a lot of people will go after those. Yeah. But they might, you know what I mean? Why does it change? Technology first and foremost, culture second. Not to be a Debbie Downer, but in a post 9/11 world, you know, our priorities in Western culture changed significantly, and the way things have been going. You know, here in the U.S., we had this huge housing market bubble crash in 2008, which just devastated a lot of families. So they're just trying to stay afloat. Do they even have the budget to buy toys? So if you think about it in that context, that's 15, 16 years ago. The kids that are just now teenagers that will be of that age soon, they didn't have a lot to be nostalgic for because they didn't have access to the things because they weren't selling, so they weren't making more. Do you see how that a robberous snake kind of feeds into itself at that point? So with that, it's like, okay, you know, as an example, like the closest allegory I can make or comparison to our generation, the deeper you get into collecting stuff from our childhoods and so forth, every so often you'll come across a toy like, oh, they made that? Oh, that's cool. And then you want to go after that. So I think there will be some of that happening as they age. So things they didn't know existed because they didn't have access to it, or, you know, mom and dad just shoved them in front of a TV or a tablet or a video game or whatever. That is a market, though, that I think could be emergent. So we tend to have properties based on comic books, film, in some cases TV, you know, and then fantasy stuff or military fantasy as well. That was kind of our genres, more or less, right? Well, if video games are the biggest, closest allegory to that, you know, between the two for that generation, I think that there's going to be a really bigger than now anyway, desire for figures, statuettes, things like that from the video games they grew up with. Okay, so maybe they'll regard The Last of Us or Resident Evil or you know, Fortnite, Destiny, any number of games that they could literally have grown up on, and then be like, I want a representation of that around beyond like just a poster or something. So maybe there will be a push for things in that direction because there's not a huge market for that now, but when those kids get older, maybe that's what they're going to want. Maybe they'll want action figures of damn reality TV stars or politicians. I don't know. Crazier things have happened.
Yeah, true. True. Martin's made a good point. Interesting that Disney is concentrating on its content, trying to bring in new generation of fans to Star Wars, but Hasbro are catering to the older generation with toys. There isn't much crossover.
I agree. Unfortunately, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know Des T. He was on Tub Bumpers the other week, and he's got like these Star Wars water bottles that are, and because it's Star Wars, Des. That's what it is. But yeah, I just find it interesting. I really do. I mean, I think the cost of things has definitely gone up, especially in the last 4 years since 2020. I mean, the price of action figures now is extortionate, and that's probably has an effect on people wanting to go out and spend stuff. I mean, for TVC, I think you're looking at about £12-13 at the time when I first started collecting them. They're now 17, 18, 19 pound, maybe 20 pound, depending on what figure it is. So I think that's got a lot to do with it. But then when you think, back in the 80s, toys were expensive then as well. Maybe not as expensive as they are now, but for the time they were still expensive.
Relative, yeah. $20 back then for a $30 back then for a Grayskull was like the same price a Grayskull is now, which I reminded a lot of people of. They're like, why is there? Hi, Mr. B. A lot of people were like, why is the Origins Grayskull, $80? I'm like, well, do the math of inflation. It's actually cheaper by comparison to what the original was if you look at the adjustment of gross inflation.
Yeah.
I didn't think anything of it. It's to say, like, they just yesterday, the Playmates is putting out a classic Turtles reissue of the Technodrome, which is the most sought after place that I'd say in that classic line because just so few people had it. It's like the Grail. It's kind of the Eternia of the Ninja Turtles line. They're reissuing it for the Classics reissue. It's an Amazon exclusive currently. They just put out product images up, and I got really excited. Of course, I pre-ordered one as soon as the listing went up, but it's one of these things where we're seeing a resurgence of toys that we, technically already collect. So there's this weird thing with the industry where they're like, oh, these guys are going to eBay and buying all this stuff. Why don't we just reissue it and make money that way? And to a certain degree with TVC, the Turtles reissues, Motu Origins, you're seeing a ton of that. Transformers. So they're recreating their market. So they're, in a weird way, corporations are trying to capture the nostalgia they had for the glory days of making billions of dollars off these properties. Yeah. Ninja Turtles have gone through 3 or 4 generations of different eras and styles of those characters. Yeah. The latest one, of course, being Mutant Mayhem. Who's to say that won't still be a hot property 30 years from now? It may well be because it's such an adaptable idea. Yeah. Star Wars is as well. I think they just have to finally decide. At some point, they're going to have to make the decision to leave us behind, pleasing us as fans, and really go after a different market. I think once they've cut that cord.
The thing is with that, Jim, if they say leave this generation behind, then I think a lot of their money's gone because we're the ones that are keeping those properties alive at this moment in time. We're the ones that are investing our money into like TVC, Black Series, Motu, Turtles. So if they turn around and say, right, we're no longer going to cater for this generation, we're going to cater for the generation before, or the generation afterwards, the younger generation, they might not be interested because at the moment, like I say, I see not much interest there at all, really, from that generation in collecting or toys.
Right, but I think the properties themselves, okay, so I'm talking media at this point. So short-term risk for a long-term gain. So if you do a really good job with the media and the marketing of the property itself, not of product, but the property, whether that be through media or something else, you'll create nostalgia for people 10 years on if you do it right. I think that they've, for such a long time, like you were saying, have kind of towed the line right down the middle, trying to catering to both, and it's not really working. So I think that they have to kind of commit. At some point, these industries have to commit. And also, I'm sure someone's already said it, and if they haven't, I know that some of them are thinking it. They need to come up with new ideas, too. Give them something that's just theirs. Yeah. Give them something that's just for them. and then that may lead to other stuff. I don't know. It's like a gateway drug. Never forget your first.
So TVC says, I'm 32 and I've been collecting Star Wars for about 7 years. I feel my generation is the last big toy one. Well, possibly. You don't know, do you? But I mean, you say that the way they advertise things and but like for properties, they've already started, Jim. They've already started doing that. You look at Star Wars, for example. They are making Star Wars now for a new generation, and I'm finding it personally very difficult to buy into that because of the way things are and stuff like that. But you know, and you know, they've done it with Marvel. I think DC at the moment is well, I don't know what's going on with DC, but
I think DC's on the cusp of a really good resurgence. If there's anyone who could save that brand at the box office, it's James Gunn.
Yeah.
I think that they might surprise us in the coming years, and that could have a big effect on toys and collectibles and a whole other generation of people. Hey, Jumpy. But again, I think that you've got to take that risk to get that reward down the line. If you want your business to be sustainable years down the road, you have to invest in the kids.
Yeah.
You know, because it's not on us to sustain their brands. It's on them. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of where my brain's at. And I think that they're asleep at the wheel because the money is coming in, you know?
I think it's going to bite him hard. If you know, I mean, you just go back a few years when Hasbro said that they were going to do plastic-free packaging, and you know, they would have lost a hell of a lot of money. But they did, didn't they? You know, especially if they'd have gone like plastic-free on the TVC cards. I think that would have put everybody off, and that would have finished the line. So
could have killed the line
there. So. You know, I think there's a big responsibility on the brands, not the brands, the companies as well to get it right, so that these next generation of kids will be interested in you know years down the line.
I agree.
So not only does the responsibility fall on the companies themselves, the toy companies themselves, like Hasbro, Mattel, and stuff like that. Do you think there's any responsibility on our generation, or do you think not at all?
I think there's a possibility of influence, but I also feel that I think responsibility is the wrong word. I think that if we decide individually or collectively that we want this stuff to live on, then we have to take the initiative.
Yeah.
But I don't think that, you know, for example, I hate to be morbid about this, but I'm just going to be frank about it. When we are in the ground, whether it be, you know, a grave, an urn, whatever you believe, right? Ashes, whatever. Our toys aren't going to get up off the shelf and come visit us and mourn us, right? So is this discussion really about what happens to our toys, or is it about how do we pass on this love? So if we're passing on the love, right? If we're passing on the love, then it should just be for the hobby itself and not necessarily for the stuff that we surround ourselves with. If we can divorce ourselves from trying to pass on the stuff we love and just pass the love itself, that spark, I think we'll be more successful. You know, encourage kids and young adults to find something they're passionate about and surround themselves with happiness. So whatever form that takes.
When you put it like that, Jim, sorry, I just want to say, not being rude, but due to some YouTube changes a few years back, some channels make a point of saying their videos aren't for kids, so that probably doesn't help. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that.
Myself included.
I was going to say, you know, so we do have a bit of a responsibility then, don't we? If you say it like that, because how do we, you know, we've got to pass that on. How do we pass that on? How do we influence? So how would we go about doing that? How do we get kids more involved and more interested in like toys and collecting and stuff like that?
I think explaining the reality of things, you know, so like, for example, a kid that loves Fortnite, which is a legitimate thing. It's been around a very long time and it will be around a very long time. But there will come a day when that game is no longer accessible. The servers go down. You can't play it anymore. And you can't put a screenshot of your best achievement on the wall, although some people might do that. Letting kids know, like, someday this is going to be gone. And when it is, if you want to remember the good times, how are you going to do that? What makes you smile about this game? What did you like the most about it? So it could be anything from certain people they like to play with as a kid or whatever. But maybe there's a physical representation of that. Maybe there isn't. I think a lot of these current games are really kind of the dark horse candidate for toy lines down the road.
Yeah.
So many games. So many games focus on making you the center of whatever's going on. You can customize their dress, their weapons, armor, whatever the case may be. Customization. So with that, I think the toy market has to adjust, right? So let's say that in Fortnite you've got 7 different colors that your character can be. There's way more, but let's just say it was down to 7, right? So if they have to make every body type available in every, clothes coloration, every armor type's got to be out there, every weapon type's got to be out there, and they've got to be able to order exactly what they want. I think what we might see is the death of the pre-packaged toy market.
Yeah,
we're going to see it just like with film go online. I think you're going to see people be able to say, here's the character. I can build the character I played in this game growing up. I can have it on my shelf as a figure or a statue or something. Now, it'll be more expensive. And so, like I said, I think that because of that personalization aspect of it might be so important to them, that they will collect with just as much reverence, but they will physically have less quantity of things. But the quality of it to them here and here might be higher. Yeah. Maybe that'll be the next evolution of collecting. I don't know. It just depends upon what they demand as consumers. And because of social media, they have access to these companies to a certain degree that we didn't have growing up. And maybe they'll be able to drive the market in the direction that they want. That's just a theory. I don't know.
DST's asked the question, is there much difference between collecting something and having a hobby? I thought collecting was a hobby. I would take it as a hobby. Yeah. It doesn't matter what you collect, does it? It could be stamps, it could be sports programs, it could be sports memorabilia, signatures, autographs, all that sort of stuff. So, but then again, a hobby could be going out fishing, or I mean, I wouldn't do it because fishing's boring. But there you go. But some people like that. But yeah, so I don't know. I thought they were one in the same.
I feel that way as well. But if we're talking about hobbies where there's an act of doing something, right? I think there can be some differences, but really collecting is an activity depending upon how you approach it. Like the art of the hunt, people talk about going out and finding things, stuff like that, or just getting your eBay search just right and finding the right deal, that sort of a thing. I think is part of it. I mean, some gaming circles, some gaming communities have gotten to the point where they are themselves a hobby, where that's what people do with their free time.
Oh, yeah.
I think that being that exists, is the nostalgia going to be for that? I don't know. Video games, ever since
you find a lot of kids would be more into gaming, I guess, and doing those online activities with games and stuff than what they would be with actually collecting physical toys and stuff like that and having a collection.
Right. So perhaps the start of that would be a concern for preservation of the games as they existed. We have yet to really see that on a large scale, but as certain online games go away over time, there are people in the background that will take their digital copies or physical copies and create their own custom servers so you can privately play your games. Some games will allow that, some games won't. And it's a question of maybe that's where some of this starts. Like the hobby is keeping things alive that way. So although it won't be physical media or a physical thing that represents that love, perhaps that's part of the hobby, is the preservation. Because a lot of this, that we collect, it is about, at least we think anyway, it's about preserving the memory. But I think we need to be honest with ourselves in the mirror and say we're preserving the memory for ourselves, and maybe for those that are loved ones that come in and see that and they can appreciate it. Maybe it's just going to be that preservation of love and nostalgia taking a different form down the road.
Yeah,
I think that could be part of it.
So I've got 2 comments that are pretty much the same. We've got Delvin 6 saying, agreed, the pace of change is a lot faster now than when it was when we were kids. Yeah, absolutely. And then my mum's put, I think kids today grow out of toys so much earlier than your generation. Yeah, they do, absolutely. And who's to blame for that? You know, we are creating this society. Kids aren't kids for long these days. They want to grow up. They want to go up. They want to be adults far too quickly. There's no kids. I think there's too much pressure on kids these days, for sure. You know, and again, that will probably have an effect on that. I mean, so who's responsible for that? Is that the parents? Is that society in general?
Yes, I think it's both. I think the society has a greater influence on our children than society had it on over us as children, just by virtue of the way news travels these days, and access to things as far and wide as, you know, everything from the stuff that they actually do love. And if you're not careful, access to things that they shouldn't be able to see until they're much older. As a result, people, you know, younger people will get hardened faster because they have access. They see the world for what it is at a much earlier age and less sheltered. Which that's a balance all of its own, to make sure a kid can be a kid, but you're not stifling their growth. It's very. Being a parent is very difficult for folks.
Oh, yeah,
my hat is off to anyone. I'm lucky. My only daughter is 21, and I'm really grateful for that because she's a fully formed adult. I don't have to worry about most of this stuff anymore in that sense. But for the folks that are raising children now, like I have a concern for them. I hope that there's a way to make that happen so that we're not having these, you know, 4-foot young adults running around so often.
I mean, for me personally, I think there's far too much pressure on kids. That I think you know, even at schools, I think some of the things that they have to do at schools and stuff like that, I think it's a bit off-putting. Well, it's off really. I mean, to be fair, I wouldn't want to grow a kid, raise a kid even. It's not like you can just put it in the garden and water it, is it, and grow it? You know what I mean? I mean, raise a kid. I wouldn't want to raise a kid these days. Anyway, Kieran Ball saying a massive influence on kids buying toys back in the day in the UK, at least, and I'm sure it's the same in the US, was that the main TV channels featured hours of programming aimed at children, featured toy-based shows and toy adverts. Yeah, absolutely.
And there was only like 3 to 5 channels to begin with. Now you have hundreds of channels for what TV services are out there. There's streaming versions of that. Then there's the streamers, the streaming platforms like your Netflixes and Disney Plus and all these things. And then you have live streamers like us that are streaming things for the kids and making videos and stuff. Like Mr. Beast is gigantic. This guy, you know, and kids love that stuff. It's very different, and I think there's a lot of concern. At least I know for a fact in the U.S., probably in the UK as well, that the literal influencers out there, what they are promoting to our children. And I think that if these toy companies really cared about the future of their company in as much as it relates to children, they'd probably focus more on that, but they don't seem to be doing that. Because they're doing market research and focus groups and all this crap. And then they're saying, well, kids don't play with toys. I'm like, well, you can change that if you make better toys for them. Make the stuff that they want.
Well, yeah.
Figure out what they want. Make it.
I mean, I think TV's got a big influence as well on it, to be honest with you. I mean, now these days, kids are primarily, well, you know, say like 8-10-year-old and stuff like that. It's reality TV. They want to see reality TV. I know there's too much of that. I mean, and these, you know, I don't get it. I don't get reality TV. You know, Big Brother and
I don't see a toy line coming out of I don't see a toy line coming out of Survivor Series 20. No, you know, I don't see that happening.
No.
Although
I mean, how
some of those would be fun.
As a kid by TV? How influenced were you as a kid by the TV shows?
Oh, so much. I mean, I remember I have distinct memories of watching The Incredible Hulk on television and always slowly backing out of the room when the change came because it scared me. My mother would tell that story for years. That's how I remember it. You know, Knight Rider, Manimal. I always wish they would make Manimal toys. I'm like, how hard could it be? You just make one of the actor, and then you make a bunch of animal toys. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Stuff like that. But that's what's funny to me, though, too, is that the slow pace of change, like we were talking about before, there are shows that in my memory lasted a year or 2 years or 3 years, but in reality they were like on for 6 months, because as a kid time passes so much slower,
Yeah.
especially when you're school age. Whereas now something that's cool changes very quickly. Something that's in only stays in for so long. So I think that it's like a game of Frogger for these companies. They're like, this is popular. Oh crap, gotta go this way. So I don't know how one could possibly keep pace with physical products that relate to these things. So this is planned in advance. You know, even probably the most influential toy line ever, the Star Wars toy line, as we all very well know, Kenner was caught unawares. They had a very short amount of time to do turnaround of R&D and production, to the point where they had to sell a piece of cardboard to maximize.
Oh, but boy, did they make up for it? Did they make up for it?
Absolutely. Yeah, but they had time, because that was a phenomenon that lasted, a decade. Yeah. Whereas now we have examples of that, but it's not quite, it's like now the toys will be out before the film or show is out. And sometimes they spoil things about these things because the toys are out and all this stuff.
Yeah.
They don't have the same level of attention to detail and care, because the old Kenner Star Wars toys, there'd be some stuff that you look on a card back and you see all the different ones. And you'd see some stuff that was blacked out because they didn't want to show what that character was until the movie was already out, kind of a thing. Like Return of the Jedi, the Ewoks are blacked out or like fuzzed over or something. That kind of thing. You don't see that now.
No. Gaps also think the rise of video games is another reason for what you guys are talking about. Yeah, absolutely. And I've said it all along that kids are more interested in video games. But where we were influenced as kids with TV programs and films like Star Wars or Star Trek or the A-Team and stuff like that, we had figures of those. So now with the games, they're doing figures of games as well. So maybe gaming could influence kids into collecting the toy figures from like Halo have got figures now, and Walking Dead have got figures. Oh, well, that was more of a comic, wasn't it? But
TV series, and you got the Fortnite is a big one. I think a lot of, and the reason I brought up the whole like customization toy thing, there's a video game that we were talking about right before the show. It's called Destiny. It's been around for 10 years. It's everything's centered around your character. You can fully customize your kit, what you look like, different colors, everything. McFarlane tried to do toys of them about 8 years ago, and they were really good. They were well made, but they were very specific armor sets and weapons. And it's like, well, if I don't play, my character doesn't look like that, why would I want that figure? It's somebody else. So I think that was a missed opportunity. And that's one example. Fortnite's the other one. There's several other games that are out there. Call of Duty is another example. Battlefield, these games where the focus is on the self, like on the id or the ego, right? So I think that if they move towards something like that, and I think they're like, Hasbro has been dipping their toes in that water with the Hasbro Pulse, like make yourself a figure thing. As technology like that improves, I think that as manufacturing methodologies maybe would improve to where you're getting more towards it. You find a way to make a 3D printed thing be as durable as the injection molded stuff, you're going to see a ton more stuff like that come out. In my opinion, I think we're for this kind of thing, for physical toys to really be on par with their video game counterpart, we have to get the technology of making toys to catch up in terms of speed of adoption. I think that's probably the missing puzzle piece. Yeah, but I don't know that for sure.
It's quite ironic when you talk about video games and stuff like that, because it wasn't it was a while back, and I still think they're doing it now, that all your DC figures from like Batman and stuff like that, they don't come with trigger weapons, or do you know what I mean? They don't come with any accessories like trigger weapons. But kids are playing these games, Halo, Call of Duty, where you go around shooting people. So you've got Warner Brothers not wanting to promote weapons and guns with their figures, but then you've got like games like Call of Duty, Halo, that the kids are going around shooting people. Do you know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
look at Grand Theft Auto when that first came out.
Oh yeah, that's another really
The
good.
things that you were doing in
That
that.
is something that is one property that I hate to say it, but enough kids and teenagers got exposed to it. That could be a prime property for toys because you have in that game you have characters that you interact with, just like you do to a certain degree in Fortnite, stuff like that. So some of that could be pre-made or whatever, but it is so we're trying to predict the future here, Stu,
Yeah.
and it's it's very difficult to do, because 5 years ago in 2019, if you'd have said, "Oh, in 5 years' time you'll be married again, you'll have a massive toy collection, and you'll be doing YouTube more often again," I'll be like, "No, I won't," because it was just all these things were foreign to me at that time. As far as like, I thought I'd done my time with media. I didn't really have any interest in collecting toys, and I certainly wasn't looking to get married again. And yet here we are, and I'm really happy. So that's just one person's experience in a 5-year. Now we're trying to look at an entire generation 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now, and it's like a lot of this is just like,
let's
maybe.
not look that far in front. Let's not look that far in front. Let's go 5 years time then.
Okay.
How? I mean, do you think things would have changed dramatically within 5 years within the collecting community?
Yes.
You do. In what way?
Yeah. Well, for example, by then, Origins, the traditional vintage Origins stuff will be pretty much done. At least it should be. The cartoon collection will be in its death throes at that point, I'm sure.
Hey, Eric. Nice to join us. Thanks, pal.
And my point I'm making here is that a lot of the toy lines we have now will have run their course, and they'll be subsisting themselves on reissues and repaints as they always have. But you will see like all of these different toy lines have gone through everything all over again just to make sure they get every last drop of juice and money out of everyone that really wants them. And if they haven't already loaded another round in the chamber to shoot their shot, I think we're going to see a glut of toys in the marketplace for a while. In about 5 to 10 years, I think we'll see, just like between the heyday of Marvel Legends when Hasbro took over for a while there, and then there was like a little bit of a dip, and then now everything's huge again. I think we're going to see that again. I think everything's cyclic. Life is cycles. I think we're going to see a dip again where there isn't enough product in the market to sustain the massive amounts of toys that we're seeing out there. I think there's going to be a lot of drop off. I think that's what's going to happen.
So my mum's just asked a question. Do you think the cost could be a factor for kids to get into? Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Yes.
It's extortionate. I think we've all mentioned it before and all said it before at some point over the last few years. The cost of what we're buying now is incredible. And if you've got a young family, I mean, look, I know what I prefer. If I went into a toy shop as a kid now and I saw like Black Series TVC or a 5 POA figure, I know, for example, I'd go for either the TVC or the Black Series. I wouldn't be interested in the 5 POA. And I think someone's alluded to it. Maybe I think Des said, is there too much choice these days for kids?
Possibly. But I also remember a time when someone gave you a $10 bill, as a birthday gift, or just, hey, you did real good on your grades. Here's $10, $15.
Yeah.
The amount of sway and the pressure that brings when you go to the toy store, like, it's not, am I going to get something? It's, what am I going to get? Right.
Yeah.
But now you give a kid $15, $20, they're going to get one, if they're lucky, 2 figures, if that's what they're into. And they're probably, because of that, and I think this might be I think the high cost of toys drives them back to video games, where they'll get a gift card for their like system of choice. I'll use my 7-year-old brother-in-law as an example. Okay. Loves his Nintendo Switch, plays all the time, and always one of his big gifts at his birthday and Christmas will always be like a big gift card for the Switch, which is great. So you can get games. And yet when they came down to visit and we were playing some games, I'd shown my collection to the rest of the family, and they're like, hey, his name, come on in here, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, wow, Like he didn't know, it was like sensory overload. He'd never seen that many toys in one place before, let alone a store, right? Or at someone's house. And I just happened to have 2 figures from the Avengers toy line, MCU stuff. So they're slightly shorter. They're like 5.5 inches as opposed to 6.
Yeah,
kind of a thing. So like it's a cheaper, more kid-friendly toy. And I gave him a Spider-Man and Captain America, and his eyes lit up like you wouldn't believe. I thought he'd be like appreciative, but wouldn't be too impressed. But he was like, "Wow!" And then he was sitting on the couch and just like looking at him. And I wanted to yell, "Just open him! It's fine, just open him!" But I feel like maybe they have a rule where they wait till we get home, you can play with them, blah blah blah. But apparently he still has them, loves them, plays them all the time. So maybe there is a lack of opportunity. People just aren't thinking along those lines. You know, because even for a young man like him, who is so entrenched in video game culture, if you just put it in front of them, you know, how do you know they're not going to like it unless you let them try it? Which is kind of a twist on the old proverb. How do you know you won't like it if you won't try it, kind of thing. I think the opposite is true too.
Delvians put, more than likely, they may also have a few environmental concerns. It's a lot of plastic. It is. I mean, the plastic that they use now is totally different from what they used when they were, you know, doing the toys in the 80s. And I think, I think the plastic now is more environmentally friendly, let's say. But then will it last? I mean, how many of today's toys, modern toys, do you see lasting the amount of time like the original Motu figures have? Yes, the rings perish, and they perish with the original O-ring G.I. Joes. You've got the Star Wars Kenner figures. I mean, half of those that I've got are pretty decent. They've held up well. Do you see modern day toys lasting as long as these toys have that we had in the 80s?
Some more than others. I think Origins is going to stand the test of time because they've engineered them in such a way there's less possibility of mechanical failure because there aren't any rubber bands to worry about. The plastic is more flexible to its advantage rather than its detriment. So things are less likely to shatter. So that's good.
Yeah.
But then you look at something like Marvel Legends, Classifieds, TVC, stuff like that, where all the articulation is there. Maybe that's going to become a problem down the line because there's smaller form factors and things like that, or they have like such little tiny. You'll see a lot of like broken hip joints and crap like that, I think, on those types of things, the hyper-articulated stuff. But also, I think the biggest and most prevalent like toys not lasting bit is going to come in the Transformers because they're so complicated now, and the plastic is already pretty crap for a lot of these reissues that we're seeing now. So I think they'll stand the test of time in the way that G1 perhaps has. I seriously doubt it. It's just too like there's. I see some comments in chat where, you know, they're not lasting the test of time when you get them out of the box, let alone 5-10 years. Like some things arrive broken these days. That like the Dungeons and Dragons line, for example, is like, oh my god. Like that. So I think that's in some ways the legacy of the manufacturing. So I think depending upon, because at this point, the point I'm making is that you can tell which teams give a crap about longevity of the toys. I think Mattel is way far and ahead of Hasbro and some other toy companies in that regard. They do tend to care about the longevity. They've learned their lessons from the past and they're trying to make it something that people can pass on. You know, but generally, a lot of stuff's just not going to last. They're going to find these broken heaps of plastic and wonder what they are. Future anthropologists will wonder. You know.
So I'll come back to another question in a minute. I just want to. Shannon's put for Guild Wars 2. There isn't a toy line, so I made a custom figure of my main, and I have hundreds of print screen images of gamer moments throughout the years to put on a slideshow picture frame. Awesome stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So what I was going to say next is, with our generation, then, when do you think it will be time to move the collection on? If you ever move it on, will there ever come a time?
I think it depends upon the person, just like everything else. I know for a fact that there are some folks that try to sell off as much as they can towards the end because it's not bringing them joy anymore. So I think that really becomes a thing. For me, it will be when it stops bringing me joy. But if all goes to plan and I have a forever home where I have a really dedicated toy room, I don't see myself getting rid of anything until someone gets rid of me. So
yeah,
because there's my particular collection, I have so many recent memories that the joy of beginning it and meeting other people and all this stuff that I want to carry probably to my grave. Again, a hopeful, great, joyous thing, a great memory, just like the memories that I'm trying to recapture by getting them in the first place. So again, that cycle.
yeah,
So for me, I'm probably gonna keep them as long as I possibly can. Like the only time that I can see myself getting rid of these things is where something changes to where I can't enjoy it anymore.
yeah.
You know, and I'm not going to dwell on that too much. But if I can't enjoy it anymore, then it's got to go. You know, because at the end of the day, my collection's for me, and just as your collection is for you. I think that's what it is.
So Adam Berry's put, so I'm going to throw something out there. Does it matter if the young gen don't get into collecting toys? Maybe it would be nice, but let's face it, there is stuff our parents were into that we are not. Well, yeah, that's fair enough. But I think it doesn't matter. You know, we're talking toys here, so you know, maybe my dad's generation and you know my granddad's generation, they were into like the dinky toys or the you know the tin cars or the train sets and stuff like that. I mean, it's still a toy, isn't it? At the end of the day. So I mean, the thing is, what I'm getting at is, I don't think there's anything today like kids' toys worth collecting because Black Series isn't aimed at kids, TVC isn't aimed at kids. Neither's, you know, I don't think some of the Transformers are aimed at kids. You know,
most of them
aren't. So, you know, I mean, so the stuff that the kids do have, is that going to be worth collecting in a few years' time? I don't know.
Again, it comes down to what the marketplace demands and what the companies are willing to take risks on.
Yeah.
So again, if we come back to like what influence we have or what responsibility we might have, is it just to let them know like, hey, if you want this stuff, you got to tell them. And like, what would you want if you could have anything, kind of a thing. Back when I was a little kid, if someone asked me that, usually I would say like a big Godzilla toy, and no one was making them at the time, at least not to where they really looked like Godzilla. And so it was always a dream of mine to have a really nice Godzilla toy, not a bunch. So I kind of feel like some of these things may finally come around. You know, like we're seeing toy lines that we wished we'd have had as kids, you know, a lot of stuff coming out. And I think that every generation is going to have some version of that.
Yeah.
But what those will be, it will be determined by them, like what the fan bases really want to see. And if the companies are smart, they'll listen and create that new market, and then the cycle will start over again.
So Shannon's put, the new generation is lacking the minimalist and lack of access factors ours had, and the parents spoiled them with every device their friends had, which totally bypassed outdoor toy years breaking. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. What else have we got? Oh, Breaking the Link. Sorry, I've got to carry that on. Breaking the Link would have the link they would have had if they grew up our way a bit more, I guess you could say. But then, look, listen, I mean, we're that generation. We're that generation who brought these kids up on, you know, video games and stuff like that. So, you know, we're responsible then, is what you're saying, Shannon. I mean, that's how I see it.
I'd say culturally, I'd say that that's true. I think that video games, when we were first growing up, were very rudimentary, and as we got older, they got better, more mature, to where you can play video games as an adult and not feel like you're using a child's toy. But as a side to all of that, they kept marketing some games to kids, and then they got access to other stuff. So their access point to these things that unlock the brain and the imagination is just different than we used to have. The storytelling isn't necessarily in cartoons.
Sorry, cheers, Eric. Thanks, pal.
I think their point of access is different. So I think that to loop it back around to toys, I think again they're going to have to tap into these things that they grew up on rather than the stuff that we grew up on.
Yeah.
Unless they somehow reinvent these brands in ways that will get the kids into it. They, you know, Hasbro famously tried and failed with that G.I. Joe mobile game that Classify was meant to be tied into. It just failed miserably. And then they said, well, they just backtracked to pleasing us older people that will have the nostalgia for the old stuff. They tried, it failed. It's going to take something really bold to really go down that road and not try to toe the line, like try to have that balance, like really go after them and see what happens. But they want their money more than they want to be successful in creating things that spark imagination.
It's all about making money. As long as they're making the money, they don't care what they put out there. But going back to gaming and stuff like that, we had an old Atari and stuff like that. And yeah, the games were, by today's standards, pretty basic.
Yeah.
But at that time, I remember we only allowed on there for about an hour and a half. So it was limited time on the game. Once we've done with the game, we put it back up in the box, put it back up in the bedroom, and then we carry on playing with our toys. These days, I think the games pull you in so much with the graphics and the stories and stuff like that, that your kids are spending longer and longer and longer on these game consoles and stuff like that.
Yep.
So,
oh, yeah. Absolutely. And then in turn, they can go to YouTube or Twitch or any one of these outlets and start and see other people playing the games and getting enjoyment from the communal aspect of it to a certain degree as well. So it's like, how can you recreate that with a toy or a statue? You can't.
Let's just see. Like, Mr. Beast is pretty good content, to be fair. Makes about 6 million a month and spends it all. I find it interesting. Spends it all on making more content.
It's true.
Listen, Adam, I have a phobia with birds now. Oh my God, Adam, you're looking at porn at 8 years. Yeah, well, there you are, Mum, and you're encouraging him, Mother. Pack it in. I used to have budgies as a kid. As pets, I always quite like birds. Right. What's this?
Is it time for your glasses yet?
No, Love Island life size gold. Love Island size, no, Boba Hicks, absolutely not, no chance. When I was younger, I played with physical toys, using my imagination to create the stories. Yes, today kids can go online and have virtual adventures. So why would they bother with? Again, it's all true, and I think that shows in the lack of imagination with film writing and writing TV series. They don't come up with something new, like you alluded to earlier, Jim. They're not coming up with something new. They're taking old ideas and adapting them into their kind of way of thinking, or putting their stamp on it, which I think pisses a lot of people off. But
less risk taking.
Yeah, I'm okay with them in general. Oh, are we talking about birds? Just flying around. What's this? We have I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here ball game. Well. Any good jump here? I don't know what to say about that. Well, Top Shelf makes it. Oh, for goodness sake, stop talking about porn. What's the matter with you? There's, we used to let Tommy, our budgies, fly around the lounge as a kid. I used to love it, especially if it landed on my head. No, very good.
Well, that's one other thing. It kind of brings up a weird thing, like with the whole like board games have a resurgence in recent years, and I think a lot of kids are playing those now. Still, whether they're electronic versions of them that you have on your tabletop or whatever, or even just the regular board games, because there's so many more board games out there. Role-playing games are still a thing, so they've adapted to a certain degree. But whether or not, that's the part, like I think about all these things. Video games have adapted. YouTube itself has adapted to a certain degree. Board games, like we just said. So I'm not sure what the missing pieces are for things like toys. But again, I know I'm beating a dead horse. It's a lack of risk, being willing to risk for imagination to really do something, rather than forcing something we love down their throats, which is what the companies are trying to do, and some are more successful than others.
How important is family time when it comes to play, like playing board games and stuff like that? Because look, we all know in today's society, life is fast paced. It's tough. Your parents are out working, your kids are at school,
Right.
they're under pressure to do like their exams or whatever. They've got other things going on. The families don't get to spend that much time together. Even like meal times, we used to all sit around the dinner table and have meals together. That was family time. Then we used to have like games like Monopoly or Cluedo or something like that, Mousetrap, and we used to play those kind of games as a family. That doesn't happen so much now, I'm guessing.
Not as much, no. You see it, but not at the. It's not the standard anymore. So it's. I think that the potential for it's out there, but it comes down to the individual families to make time for that sort of a thing. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, like I say, it's difficult. Adam, I'm sweating just thinking about it. Once one landed on my dinner plate while I was. They're still talking about birds. What's this? Sadly, social. I don't know what that was about. I'm sure Halo fans will track down old toys eventually too. Yeah, I mean, look, there's Halo figures. I mean, I've got a friend at work. He collects Halo figures. So, right. Well, we've been going for just over an hour, and I think we've done okay. Oh yeah, not while eating. That's gross. So I think we're talking about birds again. Yeah, that's kind of my point. Hey, Kev, how you doing? Good to see you, my friend.
You're way behind, man.
Yeah, I know. Not quite as bad as Shabby. Hasbro needs to have a create a commander as an option to go with selfie series. What is that? Is that a computer?
I don't know if he means Cobra Commander or what, but like create I don't know exactly where he's going with that. But yeah,
hey,
more custom figures.
Apologies it took so long to get your comment up. I've been chatting and busy and rubbish with the chat. None of this talk is explaining why Stu has My Little Ponies unless he had them back in the 80s. That's the thing, Des. I didn't have My Little Ponies back in the 80s. My sister's had a couple, I'm sure of it. But
sure,
as I said loads of times before, I don't collect My Little Pony. I've not bought one. They're all gifts. And I'm not that kind of rude person to say, no, I don't want it. Someone gives me a pony. Thank you very much. I put it up on the shelf. That's the kind of guy I am.
Yeah,
I take one.
You heard it here first, folks.
Team, guys. I take one for the
team. Send him more.
And he'll keep them. I have enough. I've got a whopping 5 now. I don't need any more My Little Ponies. I'll be needing a stable soon. Don't worry about that. But as everybody's saying hello to each other, what's this? When my nephew was younger, he was into dragons. I bought him the main dragon. Forgot his name from the game Skyrim figure from McFarlane. Oh wow!
Oh yeah,
okay. Cool. What's this? Kat's the younger generation, and she's into Godzilla and Darth Vader. So does she buck the trend? Well, Kat's not really that young, is she? I mean, how old is she? She's mid-30s, is she? I want to say. I think I've just dug myself a hole there. I'd say mid-30s. So yeah, I don't know. The last generation to play.
There's always going to be some though. There's always going to be some.
Martin, cheers, pal. See you later. Thank you. You're probably gone now, but if you watch it back, thank you very much. Cheers, mate. Everybody's saying goodbye to Martin. Some modern toys don't even last the shipping to the stores. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's Chad. Hello, sir. How are you? We're just talking about this year's generation, this generation, and toys and stuff like that, and you know how much of an influence do we have on their collecting habits? And apparently, not much at all, by the sounds of it. I mean, is there anything we can do to help that? Is there anything we can do to influence them? You know, are we?
It's going to be a controversial statement, but
hey,
I think we have to have our enthusiasm and let it rub off naturally.
Yeah,
we have to be enthusiastic, be passionate, and share that without being aggressive or pushy. And when kids see these things, I think again using Pixel Dan, you know, with his kids, I see them. I've met them. You know, they love it because he loves it. That he's such an infectious, positive guy. Now, I'm glad that they're not influenced by a lot of us because we tend to be a little bit naggy about the whole thing. Like, this doesn't the paint. It's not right.
Well, that is true.
We complain about it.
That is true. Yeah. I mean, you know, there does seem to be like a lot of sniping going on and whinging about toys and stuff like that. I mean, at the end of the day, they are toys after all. But you know, people are passionate about it, and maybe that can be a bit of a not have a negative effect on maybe the younger generation, seeing grown men argue and bicker about toys.
Yeah, and another example, when kids become of the right age to watch certain cartoons, like for example, Ninja Turtles, the classic cartoons are streaming all the time. So are the old G.I. Joe and Transformers. They're out there.
Yeah.
So if you kind of like, here's this new show, right? That might be a way to like sneak it in, you know? So rather than trying to reinvent the wheel, right? Maybe just give them the same content we had and see if they latch onto it. They might.
Yeah.
They probably will if you give them the access to it.
Yeah.
When it's appropriate.
Absolutely.
But in other words, do the work for the companies, which is a horrible thing for me to say out of my mouth. But if we want these properties to live on in the way they live in our hearts, that you just got to replicate history. So
yeah, absolutely. Gaps put, when I go looking for toys or collectibles, all I see is old men like Adam. Well, that's true. I mean, I don't see many kids at these toy fairs that I go to around our way. So, you know, that's just everybody's saying.
I will say this though.
Hello, sir. How are you? Nice of you to join us.
In response to that, I make a couple appearances a year at a overall pop culture conventions called Retropalooza. It started focused on video games, but it's expanded to pop culture in general, as well as toys. Lots of kids go to that. They recognize characters from their favorite video games and stuff. And I'm always there selling toys. Kids will just gravitate to the toys.
Yeah.
And sometimes the parent will recognize it's an expensive toy and be mortified. And if it's mine, I'm like, as long as they don't break it, I don't care. I'm like, other than you break it, you bought it, we're okay. But you see kids get sparked and really like they love the colorful boxes and everything. I think that, you know, having had this conversation and coming around the whole thing, for me, it's we cannot expect the children to pick it up on their own. We can't be forceful about it, but we need to give them the opportunities that we had with, and maybe it starts with the cartoons or the toys themselves, whatever.
Well, even the toy stores. I mean, you go into a toy store these days, and there's hardly much there's not much in there for kids, really.
It's not the same,
to be honest.
Yeah, it's not the
I
same.
just want to say hi to Smith Lord. Hello, sir. Appreciate you joining us. Thank you, my friend. Yeah, Smith Toys. Toys shops these days, especially in the UK, they're not great. But look at the marketing too. Games are marketed to kids. Toys, well, no kid is being marketed. No, absolutely. Yeah. Spot on. What Smith? I played with toys when I was a child, and I turned out fine. Well, not fine, but disturbed. But we know, we know that, Smith Lord. We know that, mate. I mentioned the board game, as you said. Not many toys would come from TV, from reality TV shows. I was giving examples. Oh, okay, yeah, no, fair enough. But then that took us onto the conversation of board games anyway. So,
sure, it all works. It all worked out.
Thank you, Gap. Very much appreciated.
You're starting to catch up.
Stuart, Coach CJ, Stu had Care Bears. Look.
I did.
I'll be honest. I'll be honest. My mum and dad, right? They bought a pack of 3 Care Bears because I had 2 sisters. It just so happened that the third one they gave to me, I don't know if it's a stocking filler, but again, I didn't go on to collect Care Bears. So don't give people ideas.
As a child, I asked for a Care Bear. I liked the Care Bears. I still like the Care Bears, and I don't care who knows it. Okay, because you know something, I know how to kill a guy with a ballpoint pen. I ain't worried about it. All right, if you want to cross the line, if you want to go, bro, it's fine. Many people are so
Care Bears. I've got nothing against My Little Ponies, but and know this My Little Pony like it started off with Shabby. Shabby was the guy that was collecting My Little Ponies, right? Then somehow I got dragged into it, and now I'm the brony. Right. I don't get how that works.
Well, we love shoving things that we love shoving things upon you that turn your face red, Stu. We love it.
There's the lighting. There's the lighting and stuff like that.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry about I could relate to what's saying. Right, maybe give the My Little Ponies away as a consolation gift, Stu, to those. Oh, you went there, Des. You went there, mate. No,
Ouch.
nothing's been said of that tonight. Nothing's been said of that tonight. And Des T went there. Adam, I can only apologise. Okay, well, gentlemen and ladies in the chat, we're going to be wrapping the live stream up now. I mean, excuse me. I know Jim's extremely tired. I mean, he has been up for quite a bit. He was explaining in the green room. So I'm going to let him go in a second. Does Adam want a My Little Pony, Des? Yes, he does. He does indeed. Has anyone else got 0 yet? He might get the whole lot. No one's got 0 yet. We find out tomorrow. If you think back what age you were when you started collecting. I started collecting again, like seriously, with this collection in 2012. So that's when I met Georgie. So it's her fault. She's the influence. I do like the Ghostbuster, My Little Pony, and admitted that laugh out loud, of course.
Oh, speaking of which,
was
mentioned Ghostbusters. for those that are not aware, the 1/18 scale Ghostbusters figures went up for pre-order today. They're on Big Bad and Amazon right now. Yeah.
Oh wow, awesome. Sandra, I started collecting again, age 23 in 19. You weren't 23 in 1995, more like 43. Des, what are you talking about? But there's still a chance that kids today might start later. Well, yeah, every possibility. Yeah. Hello, John. Nice to join us, but we're going to be shooting off soon. So there could be a new Care Bear. You want to go, Bro Bear? No, I don't want a Care Bear. Honestly, I'm good. Chad, you're rubbing off on people. Well, maybe
get that checked.
Saying hello to yeah. Okay. I think that's it. I think we've caught up with. Hang on, one more comment. What's this? Collect whatever makes you happy as long as it's legal. Absolutely.
And if not,
it's not showing up on my feed, mate. Oh, okay. Well, no worries. I don't know why that is. Evening, everyone smack the like button on the right. Thank you so much, Goji. Appreciate that, mate. Thank you. We've got APD here as well. Very good evening, sir. Hello, sir. Goodbye, sir. We're going to be shooting off soon. Good afternoon, gentlemen. What's this? I picked up the
118 Ecto.
Oh, wow.
Ecto
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, that's hard to find, so good find.
Oh, what am I doing? I keep going to click on the chat. Anyone remember?
I remember.
Yes.
Yeah,
Ugly
those are an
little...
abomination.
Yeah, they were proper ugly.
Yeah.
Nightmare fuel, as some people say. Awesome chat. Take it easy, everyone. Thank you very much. Okay, well, look, listen, everybody who turned up in the chat, thank you so much. I'm sorry it didn't show up on people's feeds. But I just want to say a massive thank you to Jim Grindhead. It's been an absolutely fantastic chat. Thank you so much for taking the time. Awesome stuff.
Of course.
Everybody, I will see you again tomorrow, 8 o'clock for Game Week 4 of the movie quiz. It'll be Group D. So we've got some awesome guests on there, including APD, BOE, PGM, Daniel Chart, and Rob's Retro. So we'll catch you tomorrow. And what's this? Great stream and chat, everyone. Take care. Cheers, Jumpy. Very much appreciated, mate. Awesome stuff. Thank you. Just remember, we're all young at heart, so collect what you want. Absolutely, Kieran. Absolutely. Right. Thank you so much. Take care. Stay safe. And I shall see you guys again and girls tomorrow, 8 p.m. Take care. Bye-bye.
Stupendous.